A decade of war is now ending. An economic recovery has begun. America's possibilities are limitless, for we possess all the qualities that this world without boundaries demands: youth and drive, diversity and openness, an endless capacity for risk, and a gift for reinvention. My fellow Americans, we are made for this moment, and we will seize it so long as we seize it together.
And the president walks into a situation where the public likes him. If you believe the polls, about 3/4 of Americans like him personally. But let's take a look at some other numbers here that we'll go through for the president. And it talks about both, really gives you an idea where some of the challenges are, if you can bring up those numbers, Ralph, and then also where we go from here. In terms of the overall, believe it or not, this is a high watermark for him for a long time. He was under 50% even going into the election for his job performance. He's up 52%, still historically not an exceedingly high number. But in terms of the qualities they like, again, 3 and 5 say he's easygoing and likable, that he can handle a crisis, compassionate, and knowledgeable. Again, these are numbers where you still show a pretty divided population on this. And then finally, if people are optimistic or pessimistic, you definitely have a divided country right now. And I think not much has really changed in 4 years. He laid out, I think at least, pretty clearly some of the things he wants to get to. But what do you think the likelihood is that he's figured out or is willing to change or has a willing partner on the other side to really have a different dynamic than we saw for 4 years?
Well, first, it pays to be liked in politics, so that gives him some power. But the fact that, 48% are pessimistic and, 51% or 52, whatever, are hopeful and optimistic, that says a lot. He really doesn't have the mandate, I think, that a lot of people think. And so it's going to have to be personal persuasion, which will require him to interact more with congressmen, invite him to the White House.
Do you think that makes a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Just give somebody, Ronald Reagan would say, you can accomplish a lot if you don't care who gets the credit. But in the end, the president will get the credit. So even if it looks like the House Republicans are doing things and they're doing great, in the end, it will reflect well on him. It did for President Clinton.
And I argue, Andrew, one way to do this is the GOP needs, with the changing demographics in this country, they need to widen their base. And if the president helps them on immigration reform, that they get a little bit of the credit, it might go a little bit of ways. But isn't it also a byproduct that 4 years ago at this time, their number one accomplishment was to make sure this guy didn't get elected? Didn't work, and he's not running again. So, I mean, maybe a hint that we saw over the weekend, they're pushing the debt limit, silliness back at least 3 months, that we're not going to have this conversation. Does he have a more willing partner this time around?
I don't know if he does. I'm not sure if the focus is 2016 or the 2014 midterms or the individual planks of the Obama agenda that he's laid out. I mean, the items that he mentioned in the address today and that he's been mentioning as we approached the beginning of the second term were things that had pretty wide popular support. Yeah, there was some controversy on guns and there were some gun issues, but for the most part, American people are on his side. Same with immigration, same with the other big issues where he is. And I have to wonder if he can appeal to the public.
Unless he says, like, for climate change, and this is how much it'll cost, and this is where I want to find the money. And then it gets tougher. But I agree with you. A lot of what he talked about, at least the public, and that brings me, Dominic, to the question of message and messenger. I don't think it's coincidental that a big arm that they used in both elections was Obama for America. They never really used that tool. Richard knows what I'm talking about. In the first 4 years after the election, to mobilize millions of people who either donated or volunteered. This time around they do, and I get the sense that the president is going to do more, maybe personal outreach. He said the kids don't want to hang out with him anymore. Maybe they'll hang out with some of the guys on the Hill. But reaching out to other constituencies, guns, perfect example on gun control, to help the public push Congress. You think I'm wrong here? Because I think he tried one way for 4 years, and it was like pulling teeth to get stuff done. Maybe this time he tries to go to the public to go to Congress to push the electeds as a way to do that.
That may be the only alternative to get things done. I hope that you're right, and I hope that Congressman Shays is correct. But it's a two-way street. The congressman says, reach out to Congress, and I agree with you that the president sets the tone. He should reach out to members of Congress, but it's a two-way street. And I mean, let's be honest. He knows that they don't really like him or want to see his agenda go forward. He knows that.
It's not just Republicans. I mean, the president needs to tell the Senate to pass a budget, which they haven't passed in 3 years. I mean, if we just focus on Republicans, then we're going to miss the story. He's got to speak to both.
I really respectfully think this entire story is the Republicans in the House.
Why?
Because the first 4 years were not just they didn't agree with him. There was a significant minority which ended up speaking for the conference that was prepared to wreck. And they did. And the debt ceiling go-around the first time was an example. The Republican Party has to decide in the House whether it's going to let the Tea Party 80 decide whether the majority can function. If they continue to let them dominate the debate...
The Tea Party is not going to be the big dominant force here.
Well, if you're right...
But let me ask you this. How do you run a government when the Senate hasn't passed a budget in 3 years? I mean, there has been obstruction on the Senate side, too, even among Democrats. They have a responsibility to pass the budget. At least the House passed the budget.
No one is perfect. But in the end, the Tea Party sensibility, the guys yelling out liar at the State of the State, the birther stuff.
One guy.
But no one smacked him. And you know,
That part is true.
If that element of the Republican Party continues to effectively control the institution.
But are you hearing it? I'm not hearing this come up now.
I thought the fact that they changed the date on debt ceiling was a big deal.
I just want to make this one comment that you made about the poll, in which the president is very well liked, but yet Americans are not sure that things are going to get done. So what does that tell you? That says to me crystal clear, they like this president, but they see an obstructionist Congress. Republicans.
But
and that's why.
And he's also got to be willing, I think, to put more skin in the game. And I think
I
at least
agree with
guns, he didn't take the incremental approach. He took the more broader one.
And he should have.
We're going to jump to a break here. We're going to come right back and talk much more about both today and also what lies ahead. Stay with us.